Welcome to the Atomic Impact Podcast. I am your host, Jason Osborn, and on this podcast, we interviewed successful business owners for them to share atomic impactful lessons that they've learned and share them with us. As always, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on any of the old traditional methods that everybody hates. We use this method to book 26 qualified leads and sales calls in 10 days without any ad spend, outreach, or endless social media posting. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn. The link of my LinkedIn profile will be in the show notes below. But on today's show, our guest is Jon Watkins. He is the owner of Resilience Development Company, providing award-winning self-leadership and resilience training that enables teams and leaders to thrive under pressure, adapt to change quickly, and stay engaged to boost productivity, retention, and results. So, Jon, it's great to have you on the show. And I want to start off by asking a question that I love asking to start off with. And it's this: if you were able to have a time machine and go back in time to when you started your very first business, what's the number one piece of advice that you would give yourself?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me, Jason. Number one piece of advice: marketing. I know that's not always first thing on people's lists. You know, we love to start with why and that sort of stuff. But for me, it's all the other stuff sort of flowed, but marketing for me, and the personal brand element. Those are two bits that we sort of neglected in my businesses. Word of mouth did a lot of work for us in the early years, so we didn't have to go out and do too much sort of personal branding. We didn't have to go out and market. And then after a few years, as the word of mouth slowed down a little bit, we found ourselves chasing our tail a little bit to get back into the game of marketing. So I've always said that if I could go back in time, then that is where I would put a lot more energy into the marketing element of it, which is right up your alley, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. I've never had anyone actually say that.
Haven't you?
And when you
Okay.
said it, I was like, okay, well, I mean, that's obviously what we help people with. But
Yes.
um, I'm I'd like to dive a little bit further into that
Yeah, of
on
course.
why, because oftentimes people will say, it's about resilience or it's about everything will work out or sticking with it or perseverance, which obviously is very true to need. But that one's a little bit different because it takes away a lot of the personal side and it's purely business focused. It's like you got to market. So, what are some of the lessons you learned on relying purely on word of mouth? And then, as you said, kind of chasing your tail. And what would you advise people, whether they're new in business or whether they're well established? And because oftentimes marketing is the first thing to go if things get tight, which I've never really understood.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what's some lessons you've learned along the way that you could advise other people on with that?
Yeah, so we had a very successful product and we were able to demonstrate a lot of our impact. So word of mouth spread really, really quickly, especially the way we went out there. And we did a little bit of marketing, obviously, at the beginning and hosted free sessions. But we didn't really look back from then and things moved very, very fast. What we didn't do was sort of supplement that word of mouth with anything tangible. Now, of course, we had a website, but it wasn't really up to the level we wanted it to be. We were dealing with high level corporates, whereas our website seems more like a Saturday and Sunday business. It wasn't that bad, but so we kind of neglected that. When people spoke about us and said, wow, you got to check these guys out, what they then saw on the website and on things like LinkedIn and Instagram didn't match what people were saying
Mm.
about us. And then what we would say in person to people didn't match the brochures that we could deliver, or the websites. So all of that sort of that well-rounded package we didn't have. I think word of mouth is still massively important in the world we live in. And if anything, the platform you love, LinkedIn, is just another way of getting word of mouth out there, isn't it? The recommendations that you need on that and Google, they're still really important. But you need the infrastructure around that, and that's what we lacked really. And I think the lessons started to flow, and more technology now sort of starts to appear. There's more opportunity for that sort of stuff. Even something as not as simple as, but these score apps that Daniel Priestley sort of scorecards that are now doing the rounds, especially in the sort of the SME world. Something like that as well as a sort of a free giveaway, I think became really important for us. So we didn't have any of that in place, so we weren't able to capitalize on that word of mouth. And the other side of things are, and you know, there's people do business with people, don't they? You know, they still want to understand and know the person. And you know, although you know there were four owners at the time, nobody really knew who we were. They just knew the product, and I think that probably held it back a little bit as well. So yeah, those are the sort of that wraparound piece that we neglected. I think kind of cost us a little bit.
Yeah. What was the transition that you made from noticing that into where you are now?
Slower business, I think, is the easy answer to that. And luckily that happened, you know, a few years ago. So before we hit this again, you know, sort of recession or, you know, slow period of economic growth, you know, our marketing was up and running at that point. So, you know, we were able to see the faults there. So, you know, we did spot it, which was, you know, which was handy. But as with all things, it's just slower growth. We weren't, you know, we consider ourselves, you know, a market leader in what we do, arguably globally in what we do. And yet our reach is certainly not at that level. That's a pretty big tell as well. You know, we're not invited to the party when there are conferences. Oh, come and give a talk here. You know, and that has started to happen in the last sort of 12 to 24 months. You know, we do get invited to talk at these events now, which is great. And that was another big sign, I think. You know, being a thought leader is pretty big in this world, isn't it? And then you've
Yeah.
got the secondary signs, you know, slow social media growth and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at businesses, and whether it's with your own clients or just maybe kind of what the pulse is right now, what are some of the big challenges that you see in resilience with either the leaders or teams? What are some common threads you often see, and some tips on how to overcome those?
Yeah, so I think you know, if we take it all the way back really and strip it back to the human being, you know, I always like to say, if you think of all the challenges, and Jason, this will apply to you, you know, all the challenges you face at work and at home, across your career, across your life, you know,
Yeah.
what percentage of those challenges are mental, emotional, and social? Not expecting you to answer that, by the way, versus technical. And of course,
Mm,
most of them are mental, emotional, and social. You know, how much training do we ever get given to develop those skills? We don't. We're expected to live, grow them in the moment, which is incredibly difficult. So that tends to be one of the big gaps that people find. They just do not have these skills to navigate some of these challenges. So we're left with coping, um,
mm,
and as we've seen since COVID, it's just coping after coping, and people are a bit tired now, and you're beginning to see that across the globe, aren't we? Lack
mm,
of energy. How can you begin to overcome that without going into too many skills? Yes, they're the obvious. We need to take a few more breaks. You know, we need to know how to manage our stress response. We need to nurture the things around us that bring us strength. But some of the really easy things, I do these with my 5-year-old, is just take a step back. And I know that sounds really simple, and it's not necessarily something we teach, but we tend to live our lives at about 100 miles an hour these days, don't we? And you know what
yeah,
it's like. We'll both come off this and we'll go straight into something else. And that's the
yeah.
way we go. We don't give ourselves time to breathe. And you know, funnily enough, I left, you know, an exceptionally elite military unit. And what I found out was I wasn't actually breathing correctly. You know, out breath should be longer than in breath. It's often the other way around, which triggers your stress response. So even just recognizing and slowing down your breathing is massively beneficial. And we do teach a specific breathing skill. I'm not going to go into that now, but I think just something as simple as, you know, learning to breathe slowly, take a step back and pause becomes massively important. And then it frees up your mind to make slightly more sensible decisions. The other things we see at a team level is how often we run into in a team meeting, go straight into the problem. And often you hear that horrible word, why is this going wrong? Why aren't we doing this? Why haven't you done this? And you forget about who, what, where, when. Why is a trigger word. It's highly emotive. So what we tend to see, and again, this isn't necessarily a skill we teach, but it's something we advise managers
Mm,
and leaders to do. Again, at the beginning of meetings, just to pause. Yes, you're running at 100 miles an hour. You've been back-to-back meetings. Everyone's tired because of that. Just a quick pause and just think about, look, what's going well at the moment. it doesn't matter if projects are failing, you know, bad things are still bad things. This is not toxic positivity, but a really quick pause just to go, look, I understand things aren't going as well as we wanted to, but look, what is going well at the moment?
Yeah.
And then the focus can move on. Look, what can we do about the stuff that isn't? Not why. So ditch why, tactical pause, as we like to say in the military, and focus on your breathing. You know, three relatively simple things you can try that doesn't require a huge amount of training to get right, but can make a massive difference both to you and the people in and around you.
Yeah, love it. Some really, really great tips that you have there, John. With where you're going in your business over the next couple of years, what are your goals? What are you wanting to achieve with the business?
Yeah, so I think it's a really funny time for personal development, learning and development, whatever you want to call it. Everyone's getting really carried away with AI, and as you know, we've been looking at AI for nearly 3 years now,
Yeah.
and you know what, it has its benefits, generally personal workflow. Businesses are still struggling with, you know, getting it to create really big outcomes for them. You know, let the big businesses worry about that, but we want to utilize that alongside what we're currently offering. So you know, we don't believe people self-learn particularly well in our sort of world. If you want to change people's thinking and their behaviors and their habits, it has to be, you have to be trained. But what AI can do is support that. So we've got a lot of emphasis on developing that side of our business. And we are primarily B2B at the moment, which is great, but we want to get to the point where you're sort of earning in your sleep, and which means we need to come up with a sort of a B2C product. We have it, but we're just re-looking at how we package it to support people. So
Mm.
app-based, supported by an AI coach, drip feeding our skills, followed by how do you apply these and use these on a day-to-day basis. That sort of journey that we take people through, I think is what we're looking at over the next 2 years, as well as
Yeah.
as well as growing from where we are now. And as we spoke before the podcast, our biggest challenge is people don't know we exist. Our data suggests we're a global leader in this world, but we're just not known at all. So that is also the other side of the business. Yes, a
Yeah.
product, but actually pushing what we've got now and setting ourselves up as a thought leader in this world on this topic of resilience, which again people massively misunderstand. You know, it's not
Mhm.
bouncing back, it's not coping. That's therapy. Most people don't need that. Most people get stuck and need to know how to move themselves forward. That means they need the skills to do that. And ultimately, you know, we are a social enterprise. We want to give this away for free. The data we have suggests it would transform the lives of millions and millions of people across the UK alone. And we want to find a way to start to deliver that for free, to be honest, and get that out. So going back into the schools will be a big thing. We used to do it there. We didn't. We pulled out to focus on the corporate world, but you know, going back into the schools in the community and finding a way to give this ultimate away for nothing is ultimately where we want to go. So 2 years, maybe that bit's a stretch, but within 5 years, I think we'd like to be there. If we're not there within 5 years, then potentially we won't be. I think
Yeah.
technology will help with that. Not there yet, I don't think, but it
Yeah.
potentially will be. So those are the three sort of big things: product, push the product we've got, and sort of re-emerge into a new market.
Yeah. Love that, man. Some really, really great goals there on what you do. And I love asking that question because I love hearing people's vision and how they think and just it's always inspiring, I think, to other people to hear that as well. Go, do you know what? I can think big as well. So, well, John, if people want to find out more about what you guys do, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is a great place. Go on there. We've got a really nice tool that you can use to explore your team's resilience, where they're currently at, and assess them. That's a brilliant place to start. Or you can move over to our website, which is resiliencetraining.co.uk. And if you Google us, Resilience Development Company, we generally appear on the first page of Google, so we should be there. But those are the three main places to find us.
Amazing, amazing. Well, John, thank you so much for taking the time out and being on the show today. And just for a reminder for everyone listening, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on any of the old traditional methods that everyone hates. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn, and that is in the show notes below.